Perfect competition arises when there are many firms selling a homogeneous good to many buyers with perfect information. In a perfectly competitive market, the sellers cannot influence the price as it is being determined by market conditions. Since this is the case, the goal of a competitive firm is to maximize profit, which is equals to total revenue minus total cost. This means that competitive firms must first determine the profit maximizing quantity at the given price. In a perfectly competitive market, profit maximization is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Taking the table as a numerical example of profit maximization, we can determine the profit maximizing quantity where MR or marginal revenue equals MC, which is the marginal cost. In the first column of the table is the quantity produced. The second column shows the total revenue, which is $6 times the quantity. The third column shows the total cost. Total cost includes fixed costs, which are $3 in this example, and variable costs, which depend on the quantity produced. The first column shows the profit, which is computed by subtracting total cost from total revenue. We can observe that if marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, as it is at 1, 2, or 3 gallons, the firm should increase the production of milk because it will put more money in their pockets than it takes out. If marginal revenue is less than marginal cost, as it is at 6, 7, or 8 gallons, the firm should decrease production. Hence, profit is maximized when the farm produces 4 or 5 gallons of milk for a profit of $7. This analysis yields three general rules for profit maximization. If marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, the firm should increase its output. If marginal cost is greater than marginal revenue, the firm should decrease its output. And last, at the profit maximizing level of output, marginal revenue and marginal cost are exactly equal. These rules are the key to rational decision making by a profit maximizing firm.
In the preceding topic, we have analyzed the behavior of a competitive industry, a market structure that is most likely when there is a large number of small firms. Right now, we're going to talk about monopoly. This time, we turn to the opposite extreme and consider an industry structure where there is only one firm in the industry. Now I'm assuming that you have already learned a few things about monopolies, like for example, it has a unique good with no close substitutes, and it is a price maker as opposed to a price taker like perfect competition. And most importantly, there's high barriers to entry in monopoly so other firms cannot enter the industry. These barriers to entry, which are the sources of market power, includes patents, government regulations other than patents, economies of scale, exclusive access to an important input, and technological innovation. In the real world, true monopolies generally exist in government-controlled markets. Other examples include electricity and water companies, national sports leagues, pharmaceutical companies, and so on. To maximize profit, firms produce at the level of output where the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost, same as for the competitive firm. Since a monopoly sells a unique good, it faces the entire downward sloping market demand curve. As a result, marginal revenue is going to be less than the price. In any linear demand curve, marginal revenue begins at the same point on the vertical axis as the demand curve, and marginal revenue has twice the slope. So, if we were to write the demand curve in inverse form as P is equals to A minus B times Q, then the marginal revenue is equals to A minus 2B times Q. As an example, if the demand curve hits the horizontal axis at 400, then the marginal revenue must hit the horizontal axis at 200. And again, this will work in any linear demand curve. So how does a firm use market power to maximize profit? As illustrated, the figure shows the demand curve, the marginal revenue, which is twice the slope, and the marginal cost at 50 cents per candy. A firm maximizes profit by comparing for each unit the revenue for selling the additional unit compared to the cost of selling that unit. If marginal revenue is bigger than the marginal cost, then that's a profitable unit to sell. So the firm keeps producing a unit so long as marginal revenue is bigger than the marginal cost until the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost. That point tells us the profit maximizing quantity of output, which in this case, 80 million of candies. In getting the maximum amount per candy that we can sell these 80 million candies, we have to go up to the demand curve, which illustrates the maximum willingness to pay to get the profit maximizing price. In this case, the maximum willingness to pay is at 12 pesos and 50 cents per candy. Introducing the average cost curve, we can now show the total profit in the diagram. The profit is the price minus the average cost. In this case, it is 10 pesos per candy times the quantity, which is 80 million units. Accordingly, the profit is the shaded area given in the figure. And there you have it. Whenever we have a monopoly question, we have a demand curve, we draw the marginal revenue curve, and we draw the marginal cost curve. After analyzing these elements, we can then find the profit maximizing quantity, the profit per unit, and the profit maximizing price.
Now, we will talk about oligopoly. Oligopoly is considered a market structure with a small number of firms or involves a few sellers that offer similar or identical products. Some of the characteristics of oligopoly include interdependence of firms, wherein various decisions regarding output, price, advertising, and many more is dependent on the decisions of other firms. Next, high barriers to entry, significance of advertising and selling costs, differentiated products, non-price competition, and many more. Some examples of firms that belong to this market structure are the automobile industry, the steel industry, the oil and gas industry, telecommunications, airlines, mass media, and so on. Now, we'll know how game theory can be used as a model for understanding the behavior of firms in an oligopolistic market. Here we have prisoner's dilemma applied to oligopoly. In the payoff matrix, firm A can either price its product at $7 or $5 the same way as firm B. If both firms choose to price their products at $7, they will split the markets for their products. Both will have a level of economic profit that will earn $15 million. But if firm B will lower its price to $5 while firm A will remain $7, the fall of the price in firm B will capture a much larger share of the market and thus increase its profits to $30 million, while the profits of firm A will fall to $5 million. While if firm B will keep its price at $7 and firm A will now lower its price to $5, firm A will have an increased profit and now have $30 million, and the profits of firm B will fall to $5 million. Lastly, if both firms reduce their price to $5 and both firms split the market 50-50, but they will have lower economic profits since they have to lower their price at $5. At $5, both firms will have $10 million. We can infer from the payoff matrix that both firms will be better off if it will always price its products at $5, regardless of what the other firm is doing. And we can say that it is the dominant strategy, in which dominant strategy exists where the firm should always do the same thing and its choice is optimal regardless of what the other firm chooses. $5 is the dominant strategy, and if both firms charge it, we can get to the Nash equilibrium. So Nash equilibrium is a set of choices wherein each player's choice is optimal, given the choices of other firms. The outcomes imply that both firms have a strong incentive in lowering their price at $5, wherein they are highly interdependent on the behavior of others. This is what game theory shows us, and this is called a game because it includes a move of firms either to charge a high price or low price. A firm's profits in an oligopoly depend not only on what the firms do, but also on what other firms or their competitors will do. Under oligopoly, they can maximize their profits by creating a cartel and acts like a monopoly. Cartel means firms act in unison. They can collude by both setting $7 to earn higher profits, but often that is not possible due to the prohibition of antitrust laws on explicit agreements among oligopolists for public policy purposes, or even due to incentive to cheat on their collusive agreement. Thus, the prisoner's dilemma indicates that even though colluding or cooperation is for the firm's mutual interests, their self interest prevents them from cooperating.
We already know about perfect competition and monopoly. We actually have all the information we need to analyze a monopolistically competitive market. Monopolistic competition is a mashup of characteristics of perfectly competitive and those of a monopoly market. It's competitive, so like perfect competition, there are large number of sellers, a large enough number so that no individual can affect the overall market, and as the large number of competitors would suggest, there's free entry and exit, firms find no substantial barriers to entering or departing this market. But moving the direction of the monopoly, the monopolistic competitor's product is differentiated, albeit only slightly from the products produced by its rivals. This product differentiation gives the monopolistically competitive firm a small amount of control over the price it can charge. Not a lot of control because the products are still highly similar but a little control. For example, the toothbrushes are toothbrushes with small differences, like angled heads or rubber grip handles or a charcoal toothbrush. If I, as the customer, believe that the rubber grip handle is the key to good dental health, then the rubber grip handle toothbrush manufacturer will be able to get me to pay a bit more for the product than for any other kind of toothbrush. Not too much more though, or I'll switch to a close substitute. Notice that in my toothbrush example, there's a real differentiation, where there are physical differences in the products. It is possible in this market to have artificial differentiation where two products are physically identical, but through marketing say, attractive packaging, or celebrity endorsements, consumers are convinced that the products are different. This couldn't happen in a perfectly competitive market because of the assumption of perfect information being available. But in a monopolistically competitive market, perfect information does not exist and consumers can be fooled into believing that products are different by the use of advertising and marketing. In the end, as long as consumers perceive the products to be different, then the products are different. It doesn't matter whether the difference is real or artificial. So, in monopolistic competition, there are lots of competitors with highly substitutable products that have slight differences, and there's free entry and exit. What does the market look like? Well, the demand facing each producer will be a small fraction of the overall market demand, and the demand will be highly but not perfectly elastic. Whereas the perfectly competitive firm's demand was horizontal, showing that they had no control over price, the monopolistically competitive firm's demand will be downward sloping, if fairly flat, showing that the firm has a small amount of control over its price. From here, you can treat the graph much as you treated the monopoly graph. With a downward sloping demand, the firm's marginal revenue will lie below its demand curve. To find the profit maximizing output and price of the firm, we need to add the marginal cost curve, determine where marginal revenue equals marginal cost to get the optimal output Q star, and then use the demand line to determine how much the firm owner can get the buyers to pay for those Q star units. Like a monopolist, a monopolistically competitive firm could make money, lose money, or break even in the short run. But like perfect competition, the picture will change long run. The firm will end up just breaking even over time. Why? Because not only does the firm have very little market power, remember also the assumption of free entry and exit. If a monopolistically competitive firm is making a profit in the short run, then other firms will see that profit and they will enter the industry. This will draw away some customers from the existing firm, lowering demand, and eventually the existing firm will just break even. Remember, if profits still exist, new firms continue to enter until there are no more profits to be had. What if the firm is losing money in the short run? In the long run, then some firms will leave. Their customers will have to shift other sellers, so that the remaining firms will see their demand curves increase until such point as they can break even. At that point, exit from the industry stops. So in the long run, like the perfectly competitive firm, the profits are driven to zero. There is an important difference though. Take a look at the two types of firms. The perfectly competitive firm in the long run always ends up operating at the most efficient point. That is the lowest per unit cost on the long run average total cost curve, whereas the monopolistically competitive firm always operates just shy of peak efficiency, operating at a slightly higher cost and producing fewer units. Let's do a quick recap of this market structure compared to perfect competition and monopoly. There are a large number of firms, more like perfect competition, with respect to the product produced. It's not identical across firms as with perfect competition, but neither is it unique. The products are differentiated but highly similar and therefore highly substitutable. Entry and exit are easy, which affects the ability to sustain profits. All types of firms use the marginal revenue equals marginal cost rule to maximize profit, and any firm can make money, lose money, or break even in the short run. But in the long run, only a firm with barriers to entry to protect its profit can sustain those profits. What about price and output? The result will be somewhere between the two extreme structures, producing more than monopoly but less than perfectly competitive market, charging less than a monopoly but more than perfectly competitive market.